cats and kittens, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the MonkeyBoy Presents the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss. And today I'm excited to bring you issue number 62, Red Arrow. And this guy has been around for quite a long time. He's gone by multiple names as well. He's sometimes referred to as Speedy, that was his original name. He was once upon a time Green Arrow's sidekick, and most recently has been featured on the new animated series on Cartoon Network, Young Justice, where he is, I think, first referred to as Speedy and then later on becomes Red Arrow. I haven't been paying as much attention to that series as I probably should, but it is good. And he's probably most well known for one of the best storylines in DC history, where it was revealed that he was a heroin addict and Green Lantern actually helped him kick his habit. But we'll cover that and pretty much everything else in the magazine, which will tell us everything we need to know about Mr. Roy Harper here. And then we'll look at the figure itself, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's another really nice figure. Good, not great, but we'll get to that shortly. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy issue number 62 of the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, Red Arrow. First up, the character section. And it's here that we learn about Roy Harper, who lost his mother when he was still just a baby, and who was raised by a Navajo medicine man after his father, a forest ranger, was killed in a fire. Brave Bo decided to teach the boy all about the intricacies of the bow and arrow, and Roy became one of the most gifted archers he had ever seen. He also took an interest in the hero, Green Arrow. After Brave Bo passed away, Roy was adopted by Ollie and became his ward and his new sidekick. Roy also began to hang out with other teenage crime fighters who were mostly sidekicks of other heroes, and together they formed the very first teenage group of heroes known as the Teen Titans. Roy felt lost and abandoned after the Teen Titans eventually disbanded, and Green Arrow went off on a cross-country adventure with friend Green Lantern. After learning of his addiction, Green Arrow turned his back on Roy, and it was the Green Lantern who actually came to his rescue. Hal eventually dropped him off with Dinah Lance, also known as the Black Canary, and she was the one who was with Roy throughout his entire detox. Roy was eventually nursed back to health with Dinah's help, but Roy still felt abandoned by Oliver in his time of need, causing a huge rift in their relationship. The next couple pages follow Speedy on his solo adventures. Speedy took work with a government agency known as the Central Bureau of Intelligence, where they wanted him to track and bring in a criminal known as Cheshire. After initially coming to blows, the pair developed a romantic relationship. becoming a single father, Roy joined back up with the Teen Titans, mentoring the next generation of heroes, and started calling himself Arsenal. Arsenal also served briefly with Batman's Black Ops team, known as the Outsiders. Roy also became a member of the Justice League of America and began calling himself Red Arrow. Next, we look at a couple of Red Arrow's classic stories. First up, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, more hard-traveling heroes. And this is probably one of the greatest team-ups ever, where Green Lantern and Green Arrow travel the country fighting against social injustices like racism and drug abuse. This story finds that the Green Arrow's sidekick and ward, Speedy, Roy Harper, is addicted to heroin. He's turned away by Green Arrow, who's shocked that he would ever do such a thing, and ends up receiving help from Green Lantern and Black Canary. It was a groundbreaking story because it tackled the issue of drug abuse front and center, something that had never been done in comic books before, and it also turned Speedy from a stereotypical sidekick type of character into a more fleshed out, three-dimensional, and complex character. We also have Justice League, Cry for Justice. And this is the story where we find Roy Harper at one of his most tragic and lowest points after he loses his arm in battle against the villain known as Prometheus, and then his daughter after Prometheus destroys the city that she's in. Ultimately, Prometheus is executed by the Green Arrow as a type of vengeance for the loss that Red Arrow has suffered. This story also shows how strong Roy is, ultimately overcoming his grief and becoming a better hero because of it. Next, we look at Red Arrow's Friends and Foes, featuring friends and allies Hawkgirl, Black Canary, and of course, Green Arrow. Finally, the iconography section talks a little bit more about the Red Arrow and his arsenal. This section talks a little more about Red Arrow's skills, pointing out that he's not only one of the fastest draws in the entire DC universe, but also one of the most accurate shots. Red Arrow, like his mentor, likes to incorporate trick arrows into his arsenal, including glue arrows, knockout gas arrows, and grenade-tipped arrows. And here we have Red Arrow, Roy Harper, and another really nice figure. Good, not great. He has some really nice touches here and there. I dig the paint scheme for the most part. The issues I have more to do with the interpretation of the character that they decided to go with for this figure, more so than the way this figure is particularly pulled off. I do like it. It's really nice. You can see, of course, it's the Red Arrow costume, duh, and it's almost identical to Green Arrow's, which comes across perfectly here. You have the nice molded and hand-painted R for Red Arrow on his belt buckle there, which I think is a nice touch. The hand, his right hand with the arrow in it, I love that hand. It's really nicely detailed, and the fact that the arrow is between his fingers there on the end, it's really nicely done, and what's even cooler is that is a separate piece. It's not attached. You can see it's only attached at his hand, and the rest of the arrow
is just hanging off of it. So it looks like he really is holding it between those fingers. And then his other hand, his left hand, is holding his bow, which is also very nice. It's unique. It doesn't look like the green arrows, which we'll see in the next section. And overall, I do like him. He's really nice. I like the mask. I like the reds, the paints of the reds they went with. It's really dull. Not a lot of glossiness to it at all, especially the lighter crimson red of like the bow and his gloves and everything. That's a very nice, dull red, which I think is appropriate. And the face is really nicely done. I like the hair color and the mask. I love those smaller masks. They're really cool. Overall, he's good. I have some issues with him, which I'll touch on here in just a moment.
Red Arrow stands atop the classic DC logo, and the underside of the base features his name and serial number. And so you can compare him and get some scale. Here he is with his friends and mentors, Black Canary and Green Arrow. A group shot with the original members of the Teen Titans. Red Arrow with the other members of the Outsiders. A shot of all the members of the Teen Titans that Eaglemoss has made so far. And finally, a big group shot with every member of the Justice League that Eaglemoss has produced so far. So the Red Arrow is another figure that I'm sort of mixed about. I like what they've given us here. The figure is good, not great. There are some problems I have with it. My biggest issue, I guess, would be that I wish it wasn't Roy as Red Arrow. I wish it was him as Arsenal over this. We'll start with the good. I do like the figure mostly. I really like the pose. I think it's dynamic and iconic. You know it's Red Arrow right away. I like the color scheme. I like the paint choices. I like the hair on him and the skin color. It's really fantastic. The red paint has some really nice shading. I like the really dark, I would call it ruby red almost, and the crimson lighter red on him. There's great shading. You can especially see it through the legs. The arrow that he's holding is a really nice touch. You can see it's a totally separate piece. It's only connected at his hand, and where he's holding it on his hand, it's between his fingers as it should be, which I think is a really nice touch. Great sculpting through there. The chest is nice. There's great sculpting, great definition. You can see the crisscrossing pattern of the vest and the string that connects the vest together. Also, the Red Arrow logo, the R on his belt, is molded and hand painted. No decals on him. Also a plus. The gloves look really good. The straps going up his arm and around his bicep are really nice. And I have to compare him to Green Arrow to review him, so you can see there are differences. As similar as they look, there are major differences. The big one being the bow. Ollie's is a much more classic-looking kind of Robin Hood type of bow, and Roy's is a much more modern-looking bow, sort of a carbon fiber kind of look. Also, very similar in the costumes, but you can see Ollie wears his quiver, the strap comes across his chest, whereas Roy's has the shoulder straps, and he does wear it a little higher up on his back, as you can see, but otherwise the quivers are pretty much similar. Both have a ton of arrows in them, really cool detail, and it is nice, really cool having them side by side. I really like having the pair, and it's neat seeing the subtle differences between the two. Finally, I like the head sculpt. It's a really nice head sculpt. I dig the look on his face. I really like the mask with those pupilless eyes. I like the hair color. It's really well done. It's sort of an auburn, the way it's parted down the middle. Great shading and highlighting. I like how it's sort of falling on his face a little on the one side. And it's just a great head sculpt, I think. It looks really, really good. The bad. There's some pretty nasty bleeding on his right arm. As nice as the sculpt is on the hand where he's holding the arrow, the arm itself is really bleeding badly, and there's not a whole lot of definition through there, so I don't like that very much. Also, the quiver filled with arrows, I wish that the ends of the arrows, the feathered part there, had a different color to them, like Ollie's did. Ollie's has that nice lighter green on the arrows, and I wish they had done something similar with Roy's here. I think that would have been a nice touch. Finally, the arrow that he does have out and is about to draw on his bow, I wish that the arrowhead was silver, or at least edged in silver, so that it looked like it had a point to it. That would have been a nice little touch that I think is kind of missing. The ugly, the absolute weakest point on the figure, I'm sure you figured it out already, is the arrow that he's holding in that hand. It's extremely fragile, very thin, easy to bend, easy to break, so don't want to drop this guy or let him fall from too high. overall, I really do like him. Please don't misunderstand. He's a nice figure. He really is. For being Red Arrow, I just wish that it was Roy as Arsenal. I always liked him better as Arsenal. I think the costume was a cooler design. I liked the fact that he used all sorts of different weapons, not just a bow and arrow, and he wouldn't have looked like such a clone of Green Arrow, but he looks really good on the shelf. It's fantastic to have another Teen Titan. Really like him with Green Arrow and Black Canary on the shelf. It sort of makes a nice little Team Arrow. And if you are partial to the Green Arrow series, you probably dig this guy, so he's worth picking up if you're a fan of that series. And he's nice. He's very nice. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this review of the Red Arrow. Please stay tuned for a quick teaser trailer of the next issue in the series. It's time, ladies and gents, for another special edition. And it's a villain. We're going into villain territory with it too, which is going to be a lot of fun. Big figure, scary figure, been around the DCU for a long, long time, and doesn't ever seem to die. So please stay tuned for that teaser. As always, I am your host, the Monkey Boy, aka Jay to his friends. Thanks for watching.